What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about if Guardians of the Galaxy is better than Spider-Man, the two Marvel games, the two possible top dogs that have come out, at least recently, right? I was actually considering making almost like a ranking video, but, I still, like, Midnight Suns is obviously still not out. We're still in this little grouping of Marvel games kind of releasing over the next couple years, but I did think, well, I loved Guardians of the Galaxy. Okay, I'm really happy that I loved it. I did the review. We've talked about the ending. We've talked about all that kind of stuff. I love Spider-Man. And I thought, well, what better video to do, and I can't believe I didn't think of this earlier, than to compare the two games to each other. Now, I'll be flat out honest. Going into this video, like hitting record, I have an idea of which one I think is better, but I kind of want to talk myself through it and then see if I end up changing my mind. Does that make sense? So I definitely want to hear from you guys in the comments. Which one do you think is better? Marvel's Spider-Man 2018 PS4 exclusive, right? A game that sold more PlayStations than like any other game in existence, at least PS4s. And Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy, a surprise hit. Honestly, I don't really think there's any other better way of describing it than a surprise hit, a game that many people didn't, including myself, weren't all that thrilled about, but we're going to give it a chance, and it ended up blowing through our expectations and becoming maybe game of the year, maybe not game of the year, but definitely up there close. So again, I would say this game is right up there with Life is Strange, True Colors for my game of the year. I'm kind of like, every day I kind of go back and forth between them, but it's definitely one of my favorites. And then Spider-Man was one of my favorites. I guess I'll say, if I had to pick right now, if you forced me to pick, I feel like I would say Spider-Man, but I want to go through again the individual aspects of each game and talk about them. The first part, I should maybe say, is the story / even the acting. Now, I'm actually going to say I think Guardians was much better than Spider-Man. Now, I know some people think, and this is okay, I know some people really, really love Spider-Man's story. They think it's like one of the greatest stories ever told and one of the greatest things ever made. I don't agree with that. I don't think I would put it up on that high of a pedestal. I would say the story was definitely solid. It was, I would even say good, or if not great, okay? But it wasn't, in my opinion, like mind-blowing. And I'm just talking about the story beats, literally the missions, the characters, okay, how they acted with each other, how they acted, to themselves, that kind of stuff, okay? Definitely good. It's not, in my opinion, the standout game of 2018 in terms of that. It's not, I guess if you put it up against like the greatest PlayStation games of all time, I wouldn't, say it's better than any of them that at least I have in my mind. But it's definitely serviceable. In fact, in my opinion, I think I've said this before, it's probably the weakest part. Not that it's bad. It's not bad. But that it's the weakest part of otherwise one of the better games that came out on the PS4, okay? Guardians, I do think, has a better story. I do think it has better characters, which is crazy. Again, in my opinion, by the way, I guess these are all my opinions, right? But remember, going into this game, that was one of the things that I was kind of worried about. Like, we don't really know the story of this game like at all. The characters, the jokes of everything leading into it weren't very good to me. The characters were like, I'm gonna maybe need some time to get adjusted to it, and you do. I think a lot of the characters, well, maybe like half. Like Rocket took a while for me to like, and Drax took a while for me to like. But when you do like them, you love them. You love this group of characters. I would say I love their version. By the way, obviously two different studios, but I loved their version of the Guardians of the Galaxy more than I probably like what Spider-Man offered. And then in terms of the story, I really like it. I mean, it was kind of like Mass Effect-y, kind of like an all-out war towards the end, but it had, and one of the things that is in contention, or the reason why it's in contention for Game of the Year, is the emotion, right? It's just it's so, I couldn't even believe it, how much of like a heart-wrenching thing they actually were able to give us, specifically, I guess, towards the end, but it's kind of sprinkled out through the entire game. So I would say, in a controversial move, okay, I would say that I think the story and characters of Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is better than Marvel's Spider-Man, okay? Now, to, I guess, not take up so much of your time, so to kind of summarize everything else, I would probably say everything, well, maybe not everything, most other things go to Spider-Man. The suits in Spider-Man is one of the only games, if not the only game in existence, that actually made me care about the outfits that you're wearing, because obviously they make them all very, very different, and they also give you unique things for each of them. So I absolutely love that. I love New York City. I love the city. Now, the tough thing, though, is that's kind of an aspect in itself. Like, the world of Spider-Man better than the world of Guardians of the Galaxy. I would honestly argue Guardians is also better. I would say the two things Guardians does better is the story / characters and then the world. I just felt like there was, now granted, it's literally a huge galaxy. You're going to all of these different worlds. You're meeting all of these, some of them very obscure comic booky, characters, which I'll actually, and again, like I'm not really into any of that stuff, so I kind of just went with the flow. But I know from seeing online, like a lot of people were shocked to see, certain characters or certain things in this game where it's like, oh my God, they went there. Like that's very obscure, but very awesome. So, I'm not saying that's the reason why I would do it. I just think world building, they did a better job of it in Guardians of the Galaxy than in Spider-Man. However, and then when you take it, I guess, the next step forward, you start to really analyze it, like traversal, like to get from one place to the other, I think Spider-Man did phenomenal. The web swinging. So while maybe Guardians, I like the world, I like the idea of the world, the setting of Spider-Man is, I think, still more, it's definitely more interactive, and I think it's a lot more fun. The crime missions were a little annoying and they got repetitive. However, they did fix that in Miles. But we are just talking about Spider-Man. The crime missions get a little repetitive, but there's no doubt you could swing around in the city for like hours and do nothing else than just swinging, enjoying the view. It looks beautiful. I'd call the games, relatively a tie. I think they both are just beautiful, beautiful games. Guardians maybe a little bit better, but it's 3 years older, or 3 years newer, so you would expect it to be, looking better. But I would say Spider-Man in terms of, moving around and getting from one place to the other. And that comes to the biggest thing that I do actually feel may put Spider-Man ahead, and is why I think Spider-Man is the better game, is the combat and just all of how it feels. So Guardians combat was one of the most surprising things, I think, of the year. I was so down on it. It does not look, in my opinion, it does not look good watching, but it's so much fun playing. It's more detailed than it looks, and it just is, right? When I was watching it, even in the early gameplay, I was like, this looks not good. And I said that, in multiple videos. When you play it, though, it's like, oh my God, like it's addicting. It's different. It is definitely a different kind of, combat that you don't really see all that often, and it's a lot of fun. So it's definitely good. Again, none of these things, even when I'm saying like some down stuff on Spider-Man, I'm not saying it's not good. I'm saying maybe the other one's better. That's all, that's all this is. But I would say, while I do love Guardians' gameplay, and I think it was a surprise shocker to me, and it's a reason why it's in contention for my game of the year this year, Spider-Man's gameplay is so good. It's kind of everything I love about the free flow combat of like Arkham, but just in terms, like, you're replacing Batman for Spider-Man, so you're replacing some moves, you're replacing a little bit of his agility, right? And I think it just works so perfectly. The gadgets, too. Oftentimes in games where, even like Witcher, and I've talked about this before, like The Witcher 3, they give you a lot. Like, you can do potions and oils and all that kind of stuff. Really, I never used any of it. And really, even for spells, I would only use like 2 out of 5 spells, maybe 3, but I never really played around with them much. So even games that, they give you all this stuff where maybe they would help out, they would even help out in terms of fighting enemies, I still kind of ignore them because they just don't grab me all that much. Spider-Man, and then even, I would say more so, Miles Morales, give you these gadgets, and they're all so cool. They're all so different. They're all so interesting. They have their, they're practical, right? There's reasons why you have them, and you can use them, or you don't have to use them. You really, you could literally just do combat. You could do counters. You can do dodges. You could just do that the entire time. You know what I mean? And the choice is up to you. So I think they really, that's one of the main things. To me, when I think of Spider-Man 2018, I think of swinging around, just having a blast in that way. In that way, you can't do that in Guardians. And the fighting. The fighting in Spider-Man is so incredibly good. It was refined again in Miles Morales, and I have a pretty good feeling that it's going to be nearly perfect in Spider-Man 2. So, again, we're dealing with 2 games that are, like, top of their class, which is shocking, at least to say, for Guardians, because I really didn't think that going in. I do think I'd prefer Spider-Man. I think if you were to tell me you have to, and maybe it's because, like, once I play Guardians once, you know the story beats. So, and maybe that hurts it, you know, even on like repeat playings where it's like, you know, now what's going to happen. That's the strongest aspect of the entire game, in my opinion, is the story and the characters. But at the same time, if we're talking about, well, how much did you like it the first, the first time you played it? Guardians shocked the living heck out of me, but Spider-Man kind of did too, because I don't really know if anybody thought Spider-Man was going to be like one of the best, PlayStation exclusives that were released. So I still think I would say Spider-Man, but we're talking like a 1A, 1B situation here. It's kind of unfair to compare Guardians to like Miles Morales, but I think it's better than Miles Morales by a lot. So that's, I really think like Spider-Man's up there, but like if you turn around, if Spider-Man turned around, Guardians is standing right behind them. So that's how close I think it is. But that's just my opinion. So I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Which one do you think is better? The reasons, let me know in the comments. As always, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Hit the bell icon so you guys know when all these videos go up. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter or subscribe to my second channel or support us on Patreon or YouTube memberships, the links for all of those are in the description below. Thank you for watching, guys, and I hope to see you all on the next video.